And we're on the air. Hello, Codementor friends. Welcome to another episode of Codementor Office Hours for today. My name is Mark from Codementor, and if this is your first time joining us, basically what we do is we get together online and talk with technology experts that we're big fans of and try to focus on sort of a specific theme. And the past few weeks, really, we've been in the middle of a JavaScript framework series kind of focus. We're actually going to continue that for the next few weeks, too. And today we're really excited to continue that theme with a session about React. So in terms of format, what I'll do is I'm going to introduce our guest. He's going to give us a presentation, and throughout, if you're in the live room with us here, you're welcome to use the group chat function to throw questions in. As people join, I'm just going to mute them. If you're watching from the Google Plus live broadcast, there's a Q&A app, and you can send in questions that way, and we'll try to hit as many questions as we can at the end. But without further ado, we're really excited to have Ilya Zayats, who is a senior software engineer over at Redbooth. He's also the former team lead at ResumUP. He studied information technologies. He has a master's in automation technology. And Ilya is joining us today from Russia, and is in this session, we're going to cover how React can give you a way to generate HTML and very effectively use it on the client and on the server. He's going to also show us how to generate crispy graphs and scalable graphics with React in an isomorphic manner. So please welcome Ilya.
Hi, thank Mark a lot for the great introduction. I will start with a screen share session. Yep. Hope that you can see that presentation.
Looks good.
Yeah, great. So I want to start a little bit with motivation behind this talk. And it was interesting that when I have a couple of friends that are great React developers, very skillful ones, but when they started working with SVG, scalable vector graphics, it looks like they totally forgot all the ideas, all the concepts that stayed behind the React, and all the great opportunities that it can provide to them, and started using it like a very complex string concatenator. So I found that very interesting, and then I understand that maybe the problem is inside our human brains, and we, for some reason, threatening SVG differently than HTML. But from the React perspective, they are totally the same conceptually, and you can really create maintainable vector graphics components with React, and it will be really easy. So in terms of my presentation, it consists of two parts. The first one is very short keynote, where I just show you the ups and downs and problems and great stuff that you can do with SVG and React. And then we can have our hands dirty with the real code. So let's go. As you can I think know now that React is not just V in the MVC. It's a bunch of great concepts and ideas that you can use with a lot of rendering backends now. It's, of course, DOM, it's Canvas, and, of course, React Native that have a lot of buzz lately. So you can apply the same abstractions and the concepts for a lot of technologies now, so you can just learn once and write everywhere. It's like the great concepts of the React. But as I already said, DOM is not HTML only, because you can apply and work with the same way that you are working with HTML with SVG, and thanks for the HTML5 renderer, you can do a lot of great stuff. But why React is really great for SVG? When you're talking about graphics and, of course, scalable vector graphics that are represented in very when you try to represent the graphics with the visual nodes, it can become very messy very fast. So if you want to have maintainable components that you can split in a very human readable way, it's great to have React, and I think that's the main strength here for when we apply that for SVG. And of course, the second stuff that we want to mention is all the technology, powerful technologies that behind React, like isomorphic way, virtual diffing, and a lot of stuff. So You could apply the same concepts for your visualizations. What are you doing with HTML now? And is SVG fully supported in React? You need to define fully supported here, because it's not really. This is a screenshot from the GitHub, React GitHubs that mentions SVG, and you can see there are some issues with that. And main issues here is that React do not support namespaced attributes now and namespace nodes, so for SVG that could be a problem. And also there are some missing tags, some missing attributes and stuff like that, but really not a huge deal, because, for example, this is image totally created with React and SVG, as you can see, your designer can show his or her skills totally with that. So just keep in mind that maybe there could be some limitations, but you easily can avoid them by dangerously setting HTML key. So as I said, this is a very short presentation, and it's time for demo. What I have here is very basic React application, and our idea is to create a graph, because I think that's the best way to represent SVG, is to create some dynamic graph that will show some data. For example, our product owner came and said, hey, we have two arrays of data that represents X and Y axis, and we need to graph it somehow. So, and we have a boilerplate like that. It's React render app, and we have app that for now returns H1. So, as I already said, working with SVG is very easy. We have H1 now, and let's replace it with SVG. Boom, we are ready. So of course we see nothing, but if we are going to the web inspector, we can see that SVG is working is the same way we're working with HTML. And maybe it's okay with the font size, or should I make it bigger? No, okay.
It looks okay to me.
Oh, okay. So let's try to show something and create a plain circle. What I'm doing now is just like super basic SVG. Oops. Duplicate data property, what? And the best demo time, it's when it's not working for some reason and something. Oh yeah, because I have CX two times, CY. Yeah, so now we have red circle. Totally not very excited, and I think it's the most hipsterish way to create a circle now on the web. But let's continue. So as I already said, we have our SVG working in place. So let's try to create a graph. What graph is it? It's a path that we need to parse data somehow and represent them with an axis and a graph. But as I already said, the main problem here that people keep pushing the stuff here to the main SVG, and it's became very bloated. So like a lot. We need to remember that we are working in React now, and we can construct it the same way that we will construct our HTML components. So let's try it from the beginning. I will create a new folder here called components. And we'll create a new graph JSX. So it will be a main body for our graph. We'll import it here. And we'll just return the same SVG that we have. and we have the same SVG. So let's start now to think about API of our graph and how we can structure it from top to bottom. So of course, every graph should have axes. And these axes, what parameters it can have? The first one is, of course, x, that we can have someone, y, and length, and understanding, is this horizontal or vertical axis? So let's create it like horizontal. True will be for now. Oh, of course, it will not work because we don't have axis implemented. Let's try to do that. So, as I already said, we have some params that we need to pass to axis. But first of all, we need to understand what size of SVG we have and how we will work with that. SVGs also support width and height params. We need to have some. If we hard code it now, then it will be hard to pass any other data from the top components to the bottom. So let's try to define some default props. And maybe someone wondering what's the strange syntax I'm using. It's ES6 that React.13, I think, entered shows. And I think that if you haven't tried now, you should try. Just use Webpack and Babel, and you are good to go. And let's try with 800 pixels and height. And now we can just use these props. Done. So for axis, I think let's try with 20, and these will be these props. Minus 100, so we'll have our margin. And length will be, because it's horizontal axis, it will be these. So now we have all the params in place. And for now, let's return empty group, just to see that everything is working. So we have a group here, but we do not have width and height. So maybe, yeah, now we have width and height, as you can see, implemented, and we have empty group. So X is working in place. So let's try to create real axis. And we just need to create a line that will have, this line will be what? We'll have green stroke width, What line expects also for additional params, it's x1, y1, x2, y2. So we just need to understand how to pass that from our top component. As I already said, axis can be vertical or horizontal. So we just need to calculate these 4 params depending on our state. So let's do that. Let chords these prepare, and then pass the chords as props. And what chords will be? So chords is x1. That should be these props x. We're just receiving it from our parent. And the same goes to the y1. It's the but then we need to distinguish from vertical to horizontal chords. So if it's vertical, then we just need to x2 will be x1 plus these props length, and chords y2 will be equal to chords y1. Nothing interesting here. And if it's not horizontal, then we just need to replace that with that. And do not forget to return chords. So if I do not mess anywhere, that should work. No, for some reason it's not working. Let's see. Return line. Oh yeah, I got an error. Chords. I think that I misspelled it somewhere. Yeah, yeah. And not once. And also, I don't know why there are two O's. Yeah, and now we have it. So our perfectly horizontal axis. And now we can easily add another one. So that will be the same axis. With it will start with the x20, but y will be 0. Length will be these props height minus 100. And horizontal, it will be false. Now you can see we have another axis and we are doing nothing in that case. We just pass in the right props to the component. And also, as you can see, when you can open the graph file, you can easily understand what's happening here. Here we have one axis, here we have the second one, and now we just need to add a graph body itself. And then our graph reads perfectly. So you totally can see and grasp what's happening here. A lot of boilerplate stuff. We can just return empty group to see that everything is hooked. Yeah, so we have two axes and empty group. So let's try to implement the graph itself, how it will be. The first one, we will start with understanding what we will use. For graph, we will use the attribute that applies better. It's path. It's a very general, generic SVG attribute where you can pass the magical D param that have strange syntax really, and it's better to read in the SVG documentation, but you can just command it where to put the brush and how to draw it. So it's like very declarative way to create your graphics, like the whole SVG. So we just need to calculate that D param depending on our data. And as already showed you, we have X and Y axis on the data, so we just need to somehow parse it. So from the human perspective, we have raw data, and from the component perspective, we just parsed somehow to the D param, and everything enclosed in only in one component and not sliced anywhere in the code base. So let's start from that. We just need to our D param. That will be these prepare data, same way that we did with axis. And we also need some additional params just to make it more understandable and easy to read. So we need to make it orange.
Like, I know your parents, and your parents are pretty lenient, and if your parents aren't approving.
So yeah, now we have just very basic path. That will of course fail now for some reason, but just to show you how that will work, I can, for example, move brush to the 1010. It's just like move brush to the X10, Y10, and then, for example, we can create a line that will be ended on 2020 and L 4040. So then we can just see anything. So we moved brush and created a line. Even close it. No, it will not show anything. But so we just need to create that strange way to strange syntax that will be our graph as a result. It will show our bumps and downs. So let's do that. And so for prepare data, what we have? We have our initial D param that will be an array with our brush move that will consist of these props X, these props. Got it. Now we need to understand what's the current position and current Y position. And have just a collector that will accumulate all our intermediate results of calculation. And if we will look to the data, we just understand that we just need to convert the raw numbers to the additionals, because from the M perspective, you just need to add the stuff and to show not the ending point, but the it's hard to describe, it's better to show. So we will have these props data that we will pass from our parent, and for each chunk of the data, what we will do, we will calculate xdiff and ydiff. And just then apply, remember. So, and push the result to the collector. That it will be another string that will have that line syntax that I showed you, and we'll have diff. And we, just to better show the difference, because we have not very huge data here, but big graph, like a lot of pixels, we just multiply it for some number just to see the results better. And for y, it will be a little bit different computation, because y goes from top to bottom. So on top you will have 0, on bottom you have like 800. So you just need to overwrite the diff. And I need to close line and return collector. No, return the collector. I have an array here, and I need to concat it. And to join. So for now that will also not work because we haven't passed the data, and I don't like why. For some reason it's not. Yeah. Now it's bug-free, I hope. And we need to pass the data to the graph, because if we render it now, we'll see we cannot read property for each of undefined because this props data is not defined anywhere. We need just to go to graph and pass all the right params that we have. And by the right params, I mean that we have x and y, where the point from which of our graph starts. It should be the same that for axis. It will be 20, and I will be these props is 8 minus 100, and also we need to pass data, and that will be this props data, because the graph will receive data from its parent. And from parent, we will pass just data. And now we just need to understand how we can pass that data to the params. As you remember, React, all the stuff in the React should happen from the top to bottom. So we have our index.js that imports our data. So we need to pass the data sets to app itself. And so app will receive in these props datasets array of arrays. So let's try to pass first one. Yay, and we have our graph. So, and let's try to pass the second one. And it's working. So what we can enhance here. The first one, I think it's the best way, is just to show the power of React and to add just a plain selector that will switch these data sets on the fly, and our graph will just update itself. And let's do that. For that, we will need to create a basic select with our options, and let's pass the state of the current selected dataset to the graph. So we will have these props datasets. We can map it. We need just only index. And we can return option key index and value equals index. Set index 1 for better human readability, and we just can close an option type. So we have now our options created, and we just need to pass it to the select. Then we understand that we have also some stuff to do. The first one, we just need to get the current selected dataset and also the event that will change the state of the app. And so we finally, for the first time today, we will create a component with the state. So let's create a default one. So it will be data set index 0. Its initial state. So we can now use it like here, the state dataset index, and I think it should work now. Diff. Not really. Options. Oh yeah. So we have a dataset now with two datasets, but of course nothing happens when we switch them, and they even not switch because it's controllable component here. So let's do our switch. So in this on change, it will be this select data set, and we need to bind it to this. I love JavaScript. So let's create select dataset function. That will be where we need to pass event to here, and it will be very easy. It will set state to dataset index event target value. So now I think that we can switch our option here, but graphs do not change because we are not we are passing it on the hard-coded dataset, and we just need to use the state data set index. Yay, it's working. So it's, as you can see, this is how React diffs not only HTML but SVG. And the best way from here that if we can go to the graph, we can, as already said, read it totally normally like a human being without understanding all that strange SVG syntax for paths and every other stuff, because just imagine if we push all that generated SVG, we can also just inspect Elementor to see what the SVG looks like. And you can see that it's not very human readable. You, of course, after a couple of hours, you will get used to that syntax, but it's not sometimes really easy to grasp on the first point. And when you have a wall of text with stuff like that, then you totally do not understand what's happening without browser. And now you can do that. So that's the best thing of React when you apply it to the SVG. And another stuff that I want to talk about is also server-side rendering, because, for example, we have now that with this not really dynamic, but dynamic graph, and our product owner, our manager, or anything, it's your own product. You're happy with that, but then a new customer came and told that, hey, I want to download it somehow, because it's totally fully generated in the browser, so it's very hard to download it from here. Of course, you can use stuff like Phantom.js or any headless other browser to do that, but remember that you're using React, and you can do that in a isomorphic way, and SVG is just like an HTML or XML is a string, really. So you just need to generate a string. I have a boilerplate of server here. It's just like a simple Express server that wants us to get that SVG and to pass it to the client on the /SVG. So let's try to finish that script. First of all, we need that SVG renderer, so it will be SVG renderer. And this will be just a plain function that will receive data. And I forgot to import React, of course. And we can really just copy-paste that stuff, but not from here, from here. But of course, this render will wait DOM node here. For isomorphic way, we need to render to string fully working, and we do not now need the second param, and also we don't need need graph. We need app. We need graph here, and datasets became data, and we need to just import graph. SVG server. Let's, for example, call it render with data. Yeah, I already have on this port something. Now we can go to the /SVG and define. Yep. For some reason it's not rendering anything. Of course, because I forget to return. Every time I do that. And now we have our graph. And as you can see, and I can show you that it's really not browser dependent, because I can just go to the log and correlate. And we have it. So you can download it, you can convert it to PDF to anything, and to do it anything that you wanted. But as you can see, also we have data React ID a lot of here. And if you do not want to make it live in the browser, for example, you want to render the complex graph, pass it to the browser, and then make it live afterwards, like a lot of Flux examples doing now, you can just switch from render to string to render to static. And now we have our SVG clean without from any data React ID or anything. It's just like really clean SVG. So yeah, I think it's the end of my demo. And I'm free to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ilya. That was really great. Yeah, anyone who has any questions, please jump in via group chat or the Q&A app. I can kick things off with a handful of questions that were emailed in. So keep in mind, these are from people who didn't see the presentation but understood the topic. How do you find React to compare to other JavaScript options, such as like Backbone or Ember, things like that?
Oh, it's not very SVG dependent on that case, yeah, but Backbone, Ember, it totally depends. What I really love in React is that you can edit little by little, piece by piece. So for example, you already have your Backbone app and you want maybe some performance or you just want to try it somehow to pass the data and anything. And you can just convert one simple component to the React and see how it goes. And then it will be like a virus because it will just eat the whole Backbone app and you will convert it to React very easily. And from Ember, it's just very hard to compare them because React and Ember are totally different. Ember, it's like a toolbox that it can provide you the full-fledged solution for the real complex browser-based applications. It's because it's really it's big and complex, but you can also create a great stuff with that, and you are totally free to try.
Cool.
Yeah, and also I want to mention. Yeah, sorry. I also want to mention, depending on the SVG, if you, as I already said, React is not fully supports SVG for 100%, and if you for some reason get that limitation and you blocked, you can also try to see for other stuff like reactive. It's also very reactive approach to generate templates, HTML, SVG, anything, but it's fully support SVG. So you can try to look there too. It's just like a lot of options here.
Cool. All right, so we got some questions coming in. Is it possible to create interactive graphs and drill down charts?
Yep, totally. I think that you already have office hours about complex data visualizations with the React, and also it was presented there fully. It was a great presentation, so I really advise anyone interested to see that also.
Yeah, great. Yeah, if for anyone wondering, on the Codementor Office Hours page, we have an archive of all the previous sessions. That was a really good one. Someone else just chimed in. You mentioned that SVG isn't fully supported by React. In practice, are there any serious gotchas that have prevented you from implementing any visualizations?
The main gotchas that I stood up, that was the namespace problem that React not supports now. But as already said, you can override it with dangerous set in your inner HTML or just any not very React way stuff to do things, but really not. There are a lot of comments in the GitHub issues with the workarounds for now. And as I already shown you an image, that we have created in ResumUP. There are just a lot of really complex graphics that you can create now with React without any limitations. So really feel free to try.
Cool. And everybody, I just sent in a link to that session we're talking about. It was a session we had a few weeks ago. Do you know a library or tool which can generate forms in HTML or SVG based on a JSON format?
In React, I think there are some libraries already that will implement, for example, React material design or anything that's already wraps some forms anything, but I think it will be just easier to create your own tool depending on your JSON format and just what you want, because React is plain JavaScript and you are really feel free to express your own ideas. So I think it's really easier to create your own.
Cool. Going back to another one that was emailed in earlier. I thought this was interesting. What are the variables in a project that would make you choose SVG for graphic creation as opposed to the other options out there?
It depends on graphics at all. So, for example, for ResumUP, we are creating resumes, of course, with that just plain. That's very strict. There are not a lot of variables there that can be changed really a lot, and also it's not very complex depending on the amount of data there, and not human data, but like browser data that it can handle. So, just a rule of thumb, if you have more than, I think, 10,000 points or 1,000 points to visualize, you can try SVG because it's easier to understand by human, and it's just like easier to work. And otherwise, if you have any performance considerations or problems, feel to use Canvas for that.
Chetan just sent another question in. How do you make a responsive SVG, or is that even possible?
The best question here is because SVG is scalable vector graphics, so SVG by default is very responsive. You can scale it like anyway. So great questions here, really.
Do you know of any large sites that are using SVG in React? Because it seems like it wouldn't be the obvious fit to put the two of them together.
Large sites.
Or companies that use those together.
I think there are this is a big trend for now to use D3 with React because it's just like very easy and also it's very performant. So I think that's of course there's previous office hour sessions about I forgot the company name that uses that visualization tool. They visualize a really huge amount of data with React D3, and D3 creates SVG for them. So it's obvious choice, I think.
Yeah, and we had a previous session with Jack Franklin who walked us through D3 as well, so that's worth checking out if you guys aren't familiar with D3 yet. Please feel free to send any other questions you have in. Looks like we just got another one. How will the rendering layout be handled when the orientation changes in small screens with SVG?
It totally depends on you and your code because SVG is not aware of the layout, so you need to recalculate it somehow and to change the view boxes, constants, or anything. So no, from the SVG perspective, it's not possible for now.
Gotcha.
To do some automatic stuff.
What are your favorite resources for learning more about React and SVG and all the stuff you're working on?
For SVG, I think a lot of stuff goes from the CSS Tricks, Smashing Magazine, and like general more not web designer. I had to limit them somehow. Just like CSS and just plain web world. From React is, of course, it's better to follow. I think the best way to learn about React is to follow right people on Twitter. It's less like the whole core team because they tweet a lot of interesting stuff. The official React JS handle and React.js news. Dan Abramov is also really great to follow because he tweets really a lot of interesting stuff about Flux, React, and the whole Facebook ecosystem. So yeah, Twitter is my choice now.
Awesome. Where can people follow more about the work you're doing? Are you doing any blogging or writing about what you're working on?
I'm thinking to start doing that. It's for now. I think it's also better to go to my Twitter. It's somebody32, and if anything new will come up, I will of course post there a link.
Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, feel free to throw any other last questions in. Otherwise, I don't want to take too much more of Ilya's time, but it looks like we got one more in here. Which server-side platform would you recommend for a React-based application?
There is hard to recommend because React totally independent of the server-side platform. So I think it's maybe easier to start without any server at all. But then you will understand why you need a server, because maybe you want to create a single-page application that you will have your API and front-end separated, or you just want to add a little bit dynamic to your already created site. Then you of course can do that, for example, with the Rails, because there are a lot of great gems there, like Rails, React, or anything that will just pair that greatly. So it's hard to recommend, and totally depends on your user case.
Sure thing. Well, great. Well, Ilya, thank you so much, and to everyone watching, thank you for joining. You know, anytime we have a session where it's heavy on screen sharing live code, I always recommend going to the Codementor YouTube channel, rewatching it a few times. That's a good thing about Hangouts on Air, is we're live recording. Yeah, definitely continue to check it out. And if any of you guys are working on anything with React and need any help, obviously Codementor is at your disposal. And I'll also be sending everyone who RSVP'd out some links to some more information that we have. Maybe I'll send Ilya's GitHub handle too. That's being requested. Oh, there you go. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks so much, everybody, and check out Codementor Office Hours for more upcoming sessions. And Ilya, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Take care.